there was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. Job 1:1. It is for this reason that we are told where the holy man dwelt, that the meritoriousness of his virtue might be expressed. For who knows not that Uz is a land of the Gentiles, and the Gentile world came under the dominion of wickedness, in the same proportion that its eyes were shut to the knowledge of its Creator. Let us be told then where he dwelt, that this circumstance may be reckoned to his praise, that he was good among bad men. For it is no very great praise to be good in company with the good, but to be good with the bad. For as it is a greater offense not to be good among good men, so it is immeasurably high testimony for anyone to have shown himself good even among the wicked. Hence it is that the same blessed Job bears witness to himself, saying, I am a brother to dragons, and a companion to owls. Job 30-29. Hence it was that Peter extolled Lot with high commendation, because he found him to be good among a reprobate people, saying, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For he was righteous in seeing and hearing, dwelling with them who vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. 2 Peter 2:7-8. Now, he evidently could not have been vexed unless he had both heard and witnessed the wicked deeds of his neighbor, and yet he is called righteous, both in seeing and in hearing, because their wicked lives affected the ears and eyes of the saint, not with a pleasant sensation, but with the pain of a blow. Hence it is that Paul says to his disciples, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine like lights in the world. Philippians 2:15. Hence it is said to the angel of the church of I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith. Revelation 2:13. Hence the holy church is commended by the voice of the spouse, where he says to her, in the song of love, as the lily among the thorns, so is my love among the daughters. For there are some in such wise simple as not to know what uprightness is, but these walk wide of the innocence of real simplicity, in proportion as they are far from mounting up to the virtue of uprightness. For while they know not how to take heed to their steps by following uprightness, they can never remain innocent by walking in simplicity. Hence it is that Paul warns his disciples, and says, but yet I would have you wise unto that which is good, and simple concerning evil. Romans 16:19. Hence again, he says, brethren, be not children in understanding. Howbeit in malice, be the children. 1 Corinthians 12:20 de la tarde. Hence truth enjoins her disciples by her own lips, saying, be the wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Matthew 10:16. For in giving them admonition, he needfully joined the two together, so that both the simplicity of the dove might be instructed by the craftiness of the serpent, and again the craftiness of the serpent might be attempered by the simplicity of the dove. Hence it is that the Holy Spirit has manifested his presence to mankind, not in the form of a dove only, but also in the form of fire. For by the dove's simplicity is indicated, and by fire, zeal. Therefore he is manifested in a dove and in fire, because all they who are full of him yield themselves to the mildness of simplicity in such sort as yet to kindle with a zeal of uprightness against the offenses of sinners. It follows, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. To fear God is never to pass over any good thing that ought to be done. Whence it is said by Solomon, whoso fears God neglects nothing. Ecclesiastes 7:18. But because there are some who practice some good actions, yet in such wise that they are by no means withheld from certain evil practices, after he is said to have been one that feared God, it is still rightly reported of him that he also eschewed evil. For it is written, depart from evil, and do good. Psalm 37:27. For indeed those good actions are not acceptable to God, which are stained in his sight by the admixture of evil deeds. And hence it is said by Solomon, he who offendeth in one point spoileth many good deeds. Ecclesiastes 9:18. Hence James bears witness, saying, for whosoever shall keep the whole law, and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. James 2:10. Hence Paul saith, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. 1 Corinthians 5:06. So then that it might be shown us how spotless the blessed Job stood forth in his good actions, it is wisely done that we have it pointed out how far he was removed from evil deeds. But it is the custom of narratus, when a wrestling match is woven into the story, first to describe the limbs of the combatants, how broad and strong the chest, how sound, how full their muscles swelled, how the belly below neither clogged by its weight, nor weakened by its shrunken size, that when they have first shown the limbs to be fit for the combat, they may then, at length, describe their bold and mighty strokes. Thus, because our athlete was about to combat the devil, the writer of the sacred story, recounting, as it were, before the exhibition in the arena, the spiritual merits in this athlete, describes the members of the soul, saying, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God, and eschewed evil. That when the powerful setting of the limbs is known, from this very strength we may already prognosticate also the victory to follow. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. The heart of the parent is often enticed into avarice by a numerous offspring, for he is the more inflamed with ambition for laying up an inheritance, in proportion as he abounds in the number to inherit it. In order then that it might be shown what holiness of mind blessed Job possessed, he is both called righteous, and is said to have been the father of a numerous offspring. And the same man in the beginning of his book is declared devout and offering sacrifices. And besides, he afterwards with his own mouth records himself as ready in giving alms. Let us then consider with what resolution he showed himself to be endowed, whom no feelings of affection for so many heirs could ever dispose to be greedy of an inheritance for them. It proceeds, his substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household. We know that the greater the loss, the greater the grief with which it affects the mind. To show then how great was his virtue, we are told that it was very much that he lost with patience. For never without pain do we part with aught, saving that which we hold without fondness. Therefore, while the greatness of his substance is described, yet soon after he is reported as resigned to the loss of it, thus parting with it without regret. It is plain that he had kept it without regard. It is also to be noted that in the first instance the riches of his heart are described, and afterwards the wealth of the body. For an abundant stores want to make the mind so much the more slack to the fear of God, as it obliges it to be occupied with a diversity of cares. For inasmuch as it is dissipated by a multitude of objects, it is prevented standing fast in that which is within, which was pointed out by truth itself in setting forth the parable of the sower. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. Matthew 30:22. See how the blessed Job is both said to have great possessions, and a little after is related to be devoutly assiduous in the divine sacrifices. Let us then consider how great was the holiness of that man who, though thus busied, disengaged himself for such assiduous attendance upon God, nor had the power of that precept as yet shone out, which bids us leave all things. Yet blessed Job already kept the intent of it in his heart, and that he surely had left his substance and intention, which he kept without taking delight in it, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. Who does not know that the men of the East are very wealthy? Accordingly he was the greatest of all the men of the East, as though it were expressly said that he was even richer than the rich. Verse 4, and his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. Greater wealth usually becomes the cause of greater discord between brethren. Oh, inestimable praise of a father's training! The father is both declared rich, and the sons at peace together, and while the wealth to be divided among them was there, an undivided affection yet filled the hearts of all. Verse 5. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Hub sent, and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. When at his sight sent, and sanctified them, it is openly shown what strictness he practiced with those when present, for whom, when absent, he was not wanting in concern. But this circumstance demands our discreet consideration, that, when the days of feasting were past, he has recourse to the purification of a holocaust for each day severally, For the holy man knew that there can scarcely be feasting without offense. He knew that the revelry of feasts must be cleansed away by much purification of sacrifices, and whatever stains the sons had contracted in their own persons at their feasts, the father wiped out by the offering of a sacrifice. For there are certain evils which it is either scarcely possible, or it may be said wholly impossible, to banish from feasting. Thus, almost always voluptuousness is the accompaniment of entertainments. For when the body is relaxed in the delight of refreshment, the heart yields itself to the admission of an empty joy. Whence it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Exodus 32:6. Almost always talkativeness is an attendant upon feasts, and when the belly is replenished, the tongue is unloosed. Whence the rich man in hell is well described as thirsting for water. In these words, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. Luke las 4:24 de la tarde, he is first said to have fared sumptuously every day, and then it is recorded that he craved a drop of water upon his tongue. For as we have said, because at feasts talking is wont to give itself full vent, the fault is indicated by the punishment in that he whom the truth had said fared sumptuously. Every day was described as most on fire in his tongue. They that attune the harmony of stringed instruments arrange it with such exceeding skill that frequently, when one chord is touched, a very different one, placed with many lying between, is made to vibrate, and when this last is sounded, the former, which is attempted to the same tune, rings without the others being struck. According to which Holy Scripture very often so deals with the several virtues and vices to that, while by express mention it conveys one thing, it does by its silence bring before us another. For nothing is recorded against the rich man relating to talkativeness. But while the punishment is described as in the tongue, we are shown which, among others, was his greatest offense in his feasting. But whereas the 7 brethren are described as making feasts, each one in his day, and whereas, when the days of feasting were over, Job is related to have offered 7 sacrifices, the account plainly indicates that, in offering a sacrifice on the 8th day, the blessed Job was celebrating the mystery of the resurrection. For the day, which is now named the Lord's Day, is the 3rd from the death of our Redeemer. But in the order of creation it is the 8th, which is also the first in the work of creation. But because, on coming round again, it follows the 7th, it is properly reckoned the 8th. Whereas then, it is said that he offered sacrifices on the 8th day. It is shown that he was full of the spirit of 7-fold grace, and served the Lord for the hope of resurrection. Hence that psalm is entitled for the octave, wherein joy for the resurrection is proclaimed, but that the sons of blessed Job had been forearmed by the discipline of such perfect training that they neither offended by word nor deed at their feasts, is plainly shown, in that it is subjoined, for Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned, and cursed God in their hearts. For he had taught them to be perfect in deed and in word, about whose thought alone the Father entertained fears. Now that we should not judge rashly of other men's hearts, we perceive in the words of this saint who does not say that they have cursed God in their hearts, but it may be that they have cursed God in their hearts. In Corinthians 4:5. Whence it is well said by Paul, therefore judge nothing before the time, until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness, and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts. For whoever deviates from the right line in thought sins in darkness. We then should be the more backward boldly to condemn the hearts of others in proportion, as we know that we cannot by our own sight throw light into the darkness of another man, estot. But here we should consider with discrimination, with what severity that father was likely to correct the deeds of his children, who set himself with so much solicitude to purify their hearts. What do those rulers of the faithful say to this, who know nothing even of the very overt acts of their disciples? What are they thinking of in excuse for themselves, who mind not in those committed to them even the wounds of evil actions, but that his perseverance too in this holy work may be demonstrated? It is well added, thus did Job all the days. For it is written, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Matthew 2:4-13. In the sacrifice then, the holiness of his conduct is shown, and in the entire number of the days of the sacrifice, perseverance in that holy conduct. These particulars we have gone through cursorily in following out the history. Now the order of interpretation requires that, beginning afresh, we should at this point open the secrets of its allegories. Verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. We believe from the history that these things took place, but let us here turn to see in what way they were allegorically fulfilled. For, as we have said, Jobba is interpreted, a mourner, a Nuza counselor. Whom else then does the blessed Job express by his name, saving him, of whom the prophet speaks, saying, Surely he hath borne our griefs. Isaiah 53:4. He dwells in the land of Uz, and that he rules the hearts of a people of wise counsels. For Paul saith that Christ is the wisdom of God, and the power of God, 1 Corinthians 1:24, and this same wisdom herself. By the lips of Solomon declareth, The first wisdom dwell with prudence, and am in the midst of witty inventions. Proverb 8:12. So Job is an inhabitant of the land of Uz, because wisdom, which underwent the pain of the passion in our behalf, has made an habitation for herself in those hearts which are instinct with the counsels of life, and one that feared God, and eschewed evil. It is written of him, and the spirit of the fear of the Lord hath filled him. Isaiah 11:3. For the incarnate Lord showed forth in his own person whatsoever. He hath inspired us with all that, what he delivered by precept he might recommend by example. So then, according to our human nature, our Redeemer feared God. For to redeem proud man, he took for man's sake an humble mind, and is acting likewise as fitly designated hereby, in that the blessed Job is said to eschew evil, for he himself eschewed evil, not evil which he came in contact with in the doing, but which upon meeting with it he rejected. For he forsook the old life, after man's method, which he found at his birth, and he stamped upon the character of his followers that new life, which he brought down with him. Verse 2. And there were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. What is conveyed to us in the number of 7, saving the sum of perfection? For to say nothing of the arguments of human reasoning which maintain that it is therefore perfect, because it consists of the first even number, and of the first uneven, of the first that is capable of division, and of the first which is incapable of it. We know most certainly that Holy Scriptures want to put the number 7 for perfection, whence also it tells us that on the 7th day the Lord rested from his works, and it is hence too that the 7th day was given to man for a rest. Sabbath. Shabbat. Hence it is that the year of Jubilee, wherein we have a full rest set forth, is accomplished in 7 weeks, being completed by the addition of the unit of our uniting together. Thus there were born to him 7 sons, namely, the apostles manfully issuing forth to preach, who in putting in practice the precepts of perfection, as it were maintained in their manner of life, the courage of the superior sex. For hence it is that 12 of them were chosen, who should be replenished with the perfection of the 7-fold grace of the Spirit. As from the number 7 we rise to 12. For 7 multiplied in its component parts is extended to 12. For whether 4 be taken by 3 or 3 by 4, 7 is changed into 12. And hence, forasmuch as the holy apostles were sent to proclaim the Holy Trinity in the 4 quarters of the globe, they were chosen 12 in number, that by their very number they might set forth that perfection, which they proclaimed both by their lips and in their lives. And 3 daughters. What do we understand by the daughters but the weaker multitudes of the faithful who, though they never adhere with the virtuous resolution to perfection of life, yet cleave with constancy to the belief of the Trinity which has been taught them? Thus by the 7 sons is represented the order of the preachers, and by the 3 daughters the multitude of the hearers. By the 3 daughters may also be signified the 3 orders of the faithful, for after mention of the sons the daughters are named. In that succeeding next to the distinguished courage of the apostles came 3 divisions of the faithful in the state of life in the church, viz. Of pastors, of those following continence, and of the married. And hence the prophet Ezekiel declares that he heard 3 men named that were set free, viz. Noah and Daniel and Job. For what is signified by Noah, who guided the ark in the waters, but the order of rulers, who while they govern the people for the fashioning of their lives, are the directors of holy church amidst the waves of temptation. What is represented by Daniel, whose marvelous abstinence we have described to us, but the life of the continent, who, while they give up everything, that is, of the world rule with elevated mind over Babylon which lies beneath them. What is signified by Job, but the life of the good that are married, who, while they do deeds of mercy, by the good things of the world which they possess, do as it were advance to their heavenly country by the paths of earth. Therefore, Because after the holy apostles, there came these three divisions of the faithful. After the sons rightly follows the mention of the three daughters that were born to him. It proceeds. Verse 3. His substance also was 3,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, that believing hearers had been gathered from various manners of life. A truth which is first declared generally by the mention of the daughters, the same as afterwards brought before us in detail by the specification of the animals. For what does he set forth in the 7,000 sheep, but to men's perfect innocence, which comes from the pastures of the law to the perfect estate of grace? What again is signified by the 3,000 camels, but the crooked defectiveness of the Gentiles coming to the fullness of faith? Now in Holy Scripture, sometimes the Lord himself is expressed by the title of a camel, and sometimes the Gentile people. For the Lord is signified by the name of a camel, as when it is said by that very Lord to the Jews that set themselves against him, who strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Matthew 23:24. For a gnat wounds while it whispers, but a camel of free will bends to receive its load. Thus the Jews strained at a gnat, in that they sought that a seditious robber should be let go, but they swallowed a camel, in that him, who had come down of his own accord to take upon him the burthens of our mortal nature. They strove to overwhelm by their clamors. Again, the Gentile state is signified by the naming of a camel, and hence Rebekah on going to Isaac is brought on a camel's back. In that the church, which hastens from the Gentile state to Christ, is found in the crooked and defective behavior of the old life. And she, when she saw Isaac, descended, in that when the Gentile world knew the Lord, it abandoned its sins, and descending from the height of self-elation sought the lowly walks of humility. And she too in bashfulness covers herself with a veil, in that she is confounded in his presence for her past life. And hence it is said by the apostle to these same Gentiles, What fruit had ye then in those things whereof ye are now ashamed? Romans 6:21. Whereas then by the sheep we understand the Hebrews, coming to the faith from the pastures of the law, nothing hinders but that we understand by the camels, the Gentile people crooked in their ways, and laden with idolatrous ceremonials. For because they devised them gods of their own selves whom they should worship, there had grown up as it were out of themselves a load upon their back, which they should carry. Furthermore, in that they are common animals, it is possible that by camels is represented the life of the Samaritans. For camels chew the cud, but do not divide the hoof. So, likewise, the Samaritans do, as it were, chew the cud. Leviticus 11:4. In that they receive in part the words of the law, but do not divide the hoof, as it were, for us, and they bear a grievous burthen upon the mind's back, and that they weary themselves in whatsoever they do without any hope of eternity. For they are strangers to faith in the resurrection, and what can be more grievous or more burthensome than to endure the tribulation of this passing state of existence, and yet never, for relief of mind, to look forward to the joy of our reward? But forasmuch as the Lord, when he appeared in the flesh, both filled the Hebrew people with the grace of perfection, and brought some of the Samaritans to the knowledge of the faith, showing marvelous works, it might well be said of the shadow which was to express the reality that he possessed both 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels. It goes on, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses. Now even before the coming of the Redeemer, Judea possessed oxen, in that she sent out laborers to preach, to whom it is said by the voice of truth, Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For the compass ye and land to make one, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Matthew 23:15. These were weighed down with the heavy yoke of the law, because they were burthened with the ordinances of the external letter, to whom it is spoken by the voice of truth, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will refresh you. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. Have you ever worried that even your good deeds might somehow be flawed in God's eyes? The story of Job gives us a fascinating insight into this. Job, a righteous man, would offer sacrifices just in case his sons had cursed God in their hearts. Now, how could they do that? It's not about shouting curses. It's when our good actions come from a wrong motive. It's when we do good things in public, but secretly harbor mischief, or when we take credit for the gifts God has given us. It's a subtle but serious inner struggle. Our spiritual enemy is crafty and attacks our good works in three main ways, trying to spoil what looks good on the outside so it becomes tainted on the inside. First, he can pollute our initial intention. He dangles the lure of praise and applause, so that even a good act is twisted from the very start, aimed at gaining worldly approval instead of pleasing God. It's like a poisoned spring. Everything that flows from it will be impure. The prophet Jeremiah lamented, "Her adversaries are the chief," which perfectly describes a soul whose intentions have been captured. From the moment the good deed is conceived with a bad motive, our spiritual adversaries gain control. But what if our intention is pure? The enemy doesn't give up. The second tactic is to lay a trap along the way. We start a good deed with a clear heart, but then something happens. Maybe praise comes our way, and even though we didn't seek it, we start to enjoy it. That pleasure can soften our resolve and make us lose our focus. Or perhaps, while acting out of a sense of justice, we let anger creep in. Our righteous stand becomes tainted by rage, destroying our inner peace. Sometimes, a cloud of sadness attaches itself to our serious efforts, making us slow and gloomy. Or the opposite happens, we become overly joyful, losing the gravity and seriousness our good actions require. The psalmist knew this danger well, crying out, "In this way that I walked, they hid a snare for me." Even on the right path, we have to watch our step. The third strategy is the most cunning. Sometimes the enemy can't corrupt our intention or trip us up along the way. So, he waits until the very end of the action. He pretends to be far away, making us feel secure and off guard. Then, just as we're about to complete our good work, he strikes. The more he tricks us into relaxing, the more devastating the wound when it comes. This is often the point where pride swells up, admiring the finished work. We start thinking, "Look what I have done," and in that moment, the entire value of the deed can be lost. It's a last-minute ambush that can undo all our efforts. So, what's the defense against these spiritual ambushes? The key is not just to do good things, but to examine them closely. It's not enough to be Our virtues must be balanced and integrated. Think of the instructions given to Moses for making the holy incense, a blend of specific spices, all in equal weight, perfectly tempered and pure. This is a beautiful metaphor for our spiritual lives. We are to combine our virtues like courage, humility, and kindness to create a pleasing aroma of good works. Each virtue supports the others. And then, the instruction says to beat the spices very small into a fine powder. This means we must constantly examine our good deeds in the mortar of war. Hearts, we need to grind them down with self-reflection, looking closely to see if they are truly good, without any lumps of pride or self. Only when our virtues are refined into this fine powder can they produce a pure fragrance before God. This idea of breaking things down is found elsewhere in Scripture. When a burnt offering was made, the priest would flay the animal and cut it into pieces. Spiritually, this means we must strip away the skin of self-deception and cut our actions into pieces, examining each part to understand our true motives. It's a process of deep, honest self-contemplation. We must be vigilant, ensuring that our good habits don't become a source of downfall. A good deed done without thought can be easily captured or led astray. The mind must always be watchful, constantly alert. As the Bible says, we must guard our hearts, for everything we do flows from them. This careful examination is what separates a truly good deed from one that just looks good on the surface. And finally, there's the critical element of perseverance. A good life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's no use running fast if you quit before the finish line. Any good work we begin is worthless if we do want to carry it through to the end of our lives. Jesus told his disciples, "You are they that have continued with me in my temptations." It's the continuation, the endurance, that counts. Think of Joseph's coat reaching to the ankles. This symbolizes a life of righteousness completed, an action finished all the way to the end. That S.Y. Moses was commanded to offer. The tale of the sacrifice on the altar, it signifies completing what we've started. The victory over evil isn't a one-time event. It's a state we must hold on to with the hand of constancy, day after day, until our very last breath. What we begin well, we must continue well, finishing the race with unwavering faith. We've explored this ancient wisdom through history, interpretation, and its spiritual meaning, hoping to offer different layers for your soul to reflect upon. But remember, whereas we dive deep into the spiritual significance, we must never lose our reverence for the original story itself. Thank you for walking through this story with Stories of the Saints, where history becomes hope and faith continues to shape the world. Subscribe to Stories of the Saints, where history becomes hope and faith still changes lives.